listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, bringing you the latest news and commentary on baseball.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out! The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball!
Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup!
The Penn State Nittany Lions are Big Ten champions.
And the NFL.
9 seconds left. Eagles by 8. Brady lines them up. He's back again. He steps up. He's hit. He stumbles. He is throwing it deep for the end zone, and it is batted around and incomplete. And the game is over. The game is over. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raff.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome once again to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and, well, your only host this evening, as J-Raff unable to join me again, so you're stuck with me. So if you enjoyed last week's show, you will be happy about this week's show, because it's just me, and I get to conclude our 2018 NFL preview by talking about the AFC East, the final division, in our look at the upcoming professional football season. So we'll be talking about the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills. Again, we've been going in alphabetical order based on the city, region, state, however you want to say the classification of the team, not by mascot, but by the city, state, or region. So we're going to start with the Bills this evening, but I also want to let you know that I will be doing a full playoff preview, as well as, or I shouldn't say preview, predictions, as well as Super Bowl 53 expectations based on what I think is going to happen in the 2018 NFL season with our division winners, a few wild cards thrown in here and there, and then how it's going to play out all the way to Atlanta, I believe. I think Super Bowl LIII, Super Bowl 53, will be in Atlanta, and it's the first time that the city is hosting the Super Bowl since 2000. So it's been a while, but of course they have that new stadium that opened just a few years ago, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. So good times down in Atlanta, and who knows, maybe I'll be picking the Falcons as the first home team to ever play in the Super Bowl. A lot of people thought it was going to happen last year with the Vikings, but they came up just a tad short of that possibility. And Falcons, Justin and I are pretty high on the Falcons this year. We have not discussed together what we think is going to happen in the playoffs and Super Bowl. I know he sent me his predictions, but I haven't actually gotten to look at them yet. And honestly, my playoff and Super Bowl stuff tonight is going to be off the top of my head. I haven't prepared for that going in. I think it's a little bit better sometimes when I don't overthink it. So we're going to just kind of shoot from the hip this evening and predict the AFC East, the Super Bowls through, or excuse me, the playoffs through Super Bowl 53. So thanks for joining me, everyone. If you want to get in touch with us, if you're watching us live, so many ways you can watch us live now. We still broadcast on Facebook. We're back also on Ustream. We also do it on YouTube and also Twitter's Periscope. So 4 different ways you can watch us and interact with us. You can leave messages, I think, on most of those platforms, and I will be able to see it if everything's working properly, but we know that that doesn't always happen. So there are some good ways to contact us. Specifically, email is always a great way, and you can use the Mays Sandwich Shop email inbox, which is Joe Mays and jraff@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter @Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Normally I'll have the hotline up, but I don't have the necessary components to wire it into my mixer tonight. So we're going to not be able to take live calls, which doesn't happen that often anyways. But if you do want to contact me with your thoughts, your predictions, or something else going on, if you really want to say something about the Phillies, who are in a bit of a slump here after the All-Star break, send that to my personal cell phone if you have it. You can text me or send us an email again, joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. So first up is the AFC East in 2018. Going back a while, the Patriots have dominated this division. I think they've won it, 15 of the last 17 times, or 16 of the last 18, is it? With only the Dolphins in 2008 and the Jets in 2002 winning it. That's it. The Patriots have now won it 9 years in a row from 2009 through 2017. And in that time period of 2001 through 2017, they've won 5 Super Bowls on top of their, 15 division titles. I think 15 and 17 years and 5 Super Bowls. So, yeah, obviously, and everyone knows it if you're a football fan, you all know that the Patriots have dominated not just the AFC East, but the AFC in particular, as they've been to the AFC Championship game at a minimum every year since 2011, and have been to the Super Bowl 4 out of those 7 seasons. So we will see what all the teams have in store for us. I think I have friends and acquaintances that are fans of all these teams that I'm talking about tonight. And while I am, a Miami Dolphins fan, I think I'm pretty level-headed when it comes to them and their rivals, because obviously I have family in New England, and we like to get, we like to playfully attack each other over the rivalry. But I think I've been pretty fair about the Patriots over the years, as well as the Jets and the Bills. But for my team and those two, there hasn't been a lot to talk about. And unfortunately, I don't think much of that's going to change this year. But we're starting alphabetically by city, state, region. So we are going to start with the Bills right now. And they are actually the only team that hasn't been able to dethrone the Patriots once in this run that New England has been going on. The Bills haven't won the AFC East since 1995. And that's well before the AFC East had a realignment. So more recently, the Indianapolis Colts have won the AFC East than the Buffalo Bills have. Of course, we know that prior to the 2002 season, things changed, and we're left with the way the divisions are aligned today. So the Colts obviously no longer in the AFC East. The Bills won the division back in 1995, going 10-6. So what do we think about the Bills this year? Well, it would help if I would have pulled up the proper Bills information first off. So last year, Buffalo went 9-7, finished second in the East. They were able to make the playoffs, which is something they hadn't done in, I think it was 22 years. So it had been a long time since Buffalo was in the playoffs. It had been the late 90s. Last time the Bills had seen that second season. And they were the last team to make that realignment I just talked about in 2002. Every team had made the playoffs since realignment in 2002, except for the Bills, and they were able to get over that hump last year. They had that ugly game against the Jaguars in the first round of the playoffs, losing to Jacksonville. Excuse me. It was an 18-year playoff drought, and that it is a 22-year and counting playoff win drought. So a little messed up on my years there. 18-year playoff drought. 22 years and counting now since their last playoff victory. And, they got better last year from 7-9 to 9-7, making the playoffs a huge, huge thing. Congratulations. Yes, we have a Bills fan in the chat right now commenting about Buffalo. Made the playoffs. That's more than I can say for my Dolphins and so many other teams in the NFL. So congratulations to Buffalo on that. This year, though, and I think let's pull up J-Raff's predictions here on the AFC East, because I think we're in alignment here. Our expectations were close, and he says he thinks Buffalo is a 7-9 team. So he has them taking a 2-game step back, matching what they did in 2016 And his simple question is, how are they better? How are they better than the team that went 9-7 last year? And I mean, I kind of agree with him. I don't think that they are any better. They jettisoned a bunch of players. Now, maybe Bills fans are going to say, well, those players weren't that great, and what we're bringing in is better. That's certainly one way to look at it. I tend to agree with Justin on this matter. I just don't know that Buffalo is any better than they were last year. There's been that ongoing saga with Tyrod Taylor, and then they jettisoned him this offseason. And the issues going on with LaShawn McCoy, that hanging over their head, that could prove to be a distraction. We saw what happened last year with Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys. Immense talent, missed time because of suspension, and just never could get things going, failing to make the playoffs, the Cowboys last year. It'll be nice to see what happens with McCoy. You know, I'm a huge proponent of, you know, innocent until proven guilty. Let the facts work themselves out. I've never been a huge fan of McCoy, but, you know, I'm not with LaShawn McCoy and the Bills offense this season. And, you know, they play in a weak division, possibly the weakest division in the NFL. Obviously, the Patriots are an incredible team. But when you get to play the Jets multiple times a year, the Dolphins multiple times a year, you know, the positive thinker could say, hey, right there could be 4 wins. That's certainly one way to look at it. They have a tough opening slate, mostly because they're on the road so much. They have, is it 6? No, it's 5 road games in their first 7. They play at Baltimore to start the season, then host the Chargers, then get to go to Minnesota and Green Bay in back-to-back weeks, host the Titans, go to the Texans, go to the Colts, and then the next game is against the Patriots. So those opponents, not necessarily all incredibly tough, but having to go on the road that often, that early in the season, is a little bit of a problem, I would think. You could tell me it's a push with the Ravens. I'd agree with you. You could even argue that it'd be a push with the Chargers. I definitely think the Vikings and Packers are better than them. I'd be willing to say possible push with the Titans. I know Tennessee also a playoff team last year, but I also am a little bit down on them. At Houston, you could argue push there as well, and I think they're probably better than the Colts. So they have the possibility of starting pretty strong, and then they get to host the Patriots. So Buffalo, like Miami, plays the Patriots tough. So, you know, nothing is a given, but you got to think that New England is definitely going to be the favorite team for sure. They got the Bears at home then. Go to the Jets before their bye. So a lot of winnable games. I wouldn't say any absolute gimmies, but definitely potential for some wins. I think in a perfect world, you could see them going... In a great world, I'd say 7-3. If Buffalo could get to 7-3 at the bye, you're sitting pretty good. That probably would mean losses to the Vikings, Packers, and Patriots, with wins over some teams that are probably of equal talent level, if not a little bit better. Because I think I favor Houston a little bit more than Buffalo, but again, that's one's a little that one goes back and forth for me for sure. So I think in a perfect world for the Bills, 7-3 at the bye would be amazing. If things fall the wrong way, though, I could see them going 3-7, kind of the opposite there. And then they get to close with Jacksonville at Miami, host the Jets, host the Lions, at New England, host Miami. So they got the Dolphins twice in December, the 2nd and 30th, they get Miami. And if the Bills want any shot at making the playoffs, they got to make their way through that early schedule, that early road schedule, and then win a lot of AFC games in the second half of the schedule. And some winnable ones against the Dolphins, Jets, Lions, and 2 weeks later, the Dolphins again. So, high water mark for Buffalo. Honestly, if things fell correctly, I think with the schedule, honestly, in where they win all the games that they, I don't want to say should, but could, they could go 11-5. Like, I don't think that's out of, it's a very small percentage, because everything would have to fall correctly in games that they probably have an equal level of talent, but that usually doesn't happen. So it's gonna be tough for the Bills from the onset, but the schedule is favorable. So they went 9-7 last year. I think they lost a little bit of talent, but I'm not sure the opponents they have are any better than them. outside of Vikings, Packers, Patriots, and probably the Jaguars. They had to play the Patriots twice, so I think I'm going to stick with Buffalo. Oh, boy. It all comes down to quarterback, and we know that they're transitioning. Now, they picked up A.J. McCarron. They could possibly go with Nathan Peterman, although that didn't go great last year. They drafted Josh Allen, but if, like our commenter here, Josh Pennola says, if the quarterback's willing to throw the ball downfield, there'll be more intersections, but he'll be throw for more than 100 yards per game like Tyrod. So, yeah, there's positive and negatives to Tyrod Taylor's game. It just is what they have on the roster right now, an overwhelming upgrade, and overwhelming not so much. But they went 9-7 with Tyrod last year, and there's inconsistencies on offense. I do agree. I think the defense is pretty strong. I think they're pretty good. I just don't think they're dominant enough to make the playoffs. So I'm going to say that they're going to sit at, boy, that's tough because of what I wanted to do with some of these other teams. Justin said that they would go 7-9. That's 2 games worse. And he has them 3rd in the division. I'm going to say 8-8 with the spot in the division up for debate because it's going to come down, I think, to a tiebreaker. So I think I'll go Buffalo 8-8. I would really love to see what Josh Allen can do because he's an interesting selection for them, and hopefully, if you're part of Bill's Mafia, hopefully he's the quarterback of the future, someone that they've been searching for a while. But I just don't know that they have enough week in, week out to get the job done. Some highlights on defense, some guys that I really like, including Micah Hyde at safety. But I just don't know that they have enough to improve on last year. So we'll see what happens in Buffalo, but I'll say 8-8 and kind of a coin flip tie there for second, third. Probably, and go ahead, you can call me a homer on this one. I'm going to say with the Dolphins here in the AFC East, I think Miami and Buffalo are going to be right there battling for the second spot behind New England. I don't think that should be a surprise to anyone. Miami went 6-10 last year, 3 games worse than the Bills. I'm not a huge Tannehill guy, but I'm a much bigger Tannehill supporter than a large contingent of the Dolphins fan base. So I give Tannehill the benefit of the doubt for this season. What he was able to do in 2016 before he got injured was very, very good. If you look at some of the advanced statistics, his 2016 season, he was a top 10 quarterback. A lot of people don't think of him that way. And I'm not saying he is all the time, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I know most people outside of Miami or Dolphins fans are writing the Miami season off, picking them to be the worst team in the AFC East and possibly the worst team in the NFL. I just don't see that. I know most of the media are talking about the departure of big names like Jarvis Landry and Ndamukong Suh, Mike Pouncey, but they were just... It's tough to say that about Jarvis Landry, but Suh was inconsistent and not always someone that you wanted around in the locker room. Landry was the team's best receiver, but had some issues in the locker room as well. And Mike Pouncey has not been the guy that people have propped him up to be over the last 3 or so seasons. He's always had issues being healthy, and he sometimes was a bit of an issue in the locker room. So I think those 3 guys at times can be looked at as addition by subtraction, but it is tough to replace their raw athletic ability. So we'll see what they're able to do without them. The biggest thing for Miami is getting Tannehill back, but they also are getting Raekwon McMillan back on defense, who he was their second-round pick out of Ohio State in the 2017 draft, but he missed almost the entire season due to injury, tearing his ACL, I believe, in one of the early preseason games. Might have been the first defensive play of the preseason, actually. Miami struggled last year. They started off the season pretty well going forward, too, but then, they just... they had a bit of a rough stretch where they lost 5 in a row, rebounded to win 2, and then lost 3 more. And I've never been a huge Cutler fan, so it's not exactly wasn't exactly a shock to me to see that they struggled at times with him. But I definitely like Tannehill better than Cutler, so I think that's an upgrade there. I like the additions of Amendola and Albert Wilson. I think those are great guys to bring in on semi-short-term contracts. Josh Sitton, while on the wrong side of 30, is a strong interior offensive lineman that I think is an upgrade for the Dolphins. And I love their first 2 picks. It's been a while since I can say that about the Dolphins draft, but I think those first 2 picks, honestly, maybe even 4 of their first 5, as I don't know a lot about Durham Smythe, the tight end they took in the 4th round, but Minkah Fitzpatrick, the free safety from Alabama, loved him. Always wanted him to come to Penn State when he was looking for a college. And then they get the Penn Stater in round 2 with Mike Gesicki, the receiving tight end, Jerome Baker, outside linebacker, Ohio State, and Kalen Ballage, the running back from Arizona State. I love those picks. I thought they were really good, and hopefully Durham Smythe can do something as a nice compliment to Gesicki down the road, that this turns out to be quite the draft class for Miami. We'll see what can happen. But Tannehill is a huge bring back. I think the rotation with the addition of Frank Gore to Kenyon Drake and Kalen Ballage, the rookie, will be okay. I think they'll be fine. When Damian Williams went down injured last year, Kenyon Drake stepped up and looked really good in the opportunities he got. Adam Gase likes to rotate his running backs. And while I think Drake will probably be the go-to guy, I'm not sure he'll get more than 40-45% of the carries, because I think Gore will get 25 to 30, and then I think Ballage will have a rotation as well. So fantasy-wise, I don't know if you want to rely on Kenyon Drake. I think he'd be a good RB2 if you use 3, for certain a 3, maybe a flex, but I don't think he's going to get you RB1 numbers. Receiver-wise, I know people really love Jarvis Landry, but I'm more than comfortable seeing Danny Amendola, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, and hopefully in some situations Jakeem Grant, because I think he's an underrated guy there that'll get his time on special teams, but I'd love to see what he can do on offense as well. And then Gesicki paired with a variety of people at tight end, but Gesicki is the guy that's supposed to revolutionize the red zone for the Dolphins. I like him there. And I really do. I don't think the offensive line is that bad. I love the addition of Sitton, like I said. Tunsil, hopefully he'll step up here now in, his 3rd year, I think. Jawan James. I've always been a big fan of Ted Larson. I like his addition. And Daniel Kilgore, the new center that they brought in via trade. I think that was an underrated move as well. So, yeah, they lost Mike Pouncey, but I think Sitton and Kilgore are big gets for the Dolphins. Defensively speaking, they brought in via trade Robert Quinn. I think that's a nice addition to go with Cameron Wake, Andre Branch, and then their 2nd-year player Charles Harris, who he'll be asked to step up a little bit more this year, hopefully providing a strong pass rush. The biggest issue is on defense, at least, is at linebacker, where Kiko Alonso has never been able to live up to the hype that he had his first few years in Buffalo. They drafted Baker, like I mentioned. I love Mike Hall. Hopefully he can see some time being the former Penn State linebacker. But if McMillan is what we expected him to be before his injury last year, the linebacker position could end up being fortified, and I look forward to seeing that. I only am not down in the defensive backfield mostly because of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he's going to be a great get to pair with Rashad Jones. Fitzpatrick can roam all over the field. Jones can play in the box and kind of be the bruiser that he is. And hopefully someone will step up at cornerback with Xavier Howard, Bobby McCain, Cordray Tankersley, and Tony Lippett. Hopefully 2 of those 4 guys really step up. And that also, not to mention TJ McDonald, the safety they got from the Rams last year, who missed the first half of the season due to suspension. A rotation of McDonald, Jones, and Fitzpatrick at safety, or even using Fitzpatrick in the slot or whatever, I think they could surprise some people. 6-10 getting Tannehill back, despite losing those big names. I think Miami's much better than people are giving them credit for, and that's why I said I think I'm going to pair them with Buffalo at 8-8. So if they're both tied at 8-8, I'll throw the homer card in there, and I'll say Miami will beat Buffalo on tiebreaker. Now, whether that's a head-to-head tiebreaker, the division tiebreaker, the conference tiebreaker, whatever it is, I think Miami and Buffalo go 8-8 and finish 2-3. So who's next? Well, alphabetically, we're going to go to New England and talk about the Patriots. who have an incredible, successful run that makes me want to throw up. But, you got to recognize the talent that is there in New England, both in ownership, management, front office, coaching staff, and what they put out on the field in the players. And it's really second to none. I would love for that to end. I'd like to see some of that be distributed across the NFL. I'm not greedy. I don't need to have 5 Super Bowls in 17 years, but I absolutely would love to see one come my. We just got to see the Eagles win one. I wouldn't mind seeing that happen to my Dolphins sometime. But, New England, can you doubt them? I don't see how you can doubt the New England Patriots. Are they any worse? Are there any worse? Actually, before I go on, I should probably mention what Justin had for Miami. Oh, he said 8-8 too. He said he thinks they're in the right direction. Do they have the quarterback? I think they do, but much like I said about the Ravens and Flacco, I'll say the same thing about the Dolphins. If Tannehill and the Dolphins struggle this year, it's probably time for another change at the position that has been so in flux for the better part of 2 decades. So, but back to the Patriots. Why don't we just see what Justin had to say about them? He said 13-3, best team in a mediocre division. And it's hard to argue against that because the Dolphins have been quite mediocre during this run. Same thing for the Jets and the Bills. And I don't really expect much to be different in 2018. So, we all know about the Patriots. Losers to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, which I know Justin loves hearing and any other Eagle fans out there love hearing as well. But, they did go 13-3. They won the division again. Again, it's 15th in 17 years, 9 in a row. Been to the AFC Championship game for the better part of the last decade. And what have they really lost? And what has anyone else in the division done to make this not be the Patriots division? I just don't know. I don't know how it can be anyone but New England. They would have to have a huge drop-off for this not to be the Patriots division to lose. Now, we know they lost Amendola. He went to the Dolphins. They got rid of Butler, or they let Butler walk, but he had that issue in the Super Bowl. Whatever knows what's going on with that. We may never know. He went to Tennessee. Dion Lewis also joined him in Tennessee, and they lost Nate Solder, the offensive tackle, to the Giants. Other than that, nothing huge for them, but of course they made up for it in some great free agent signings in Adrian Claiborne, Jeremy Hill, the running back from the Bengals, Jordan Matthews, former Eagles and Bills receiver, going over to the Patriots, and then their draft class. They got 2 first-round picks, a little bit of a change of pace for them. They kind of attempted to replace Nate Solder with Isaiah Wynn, the tackle from Georgia, and then they got a big pick in Sony Michael, the running back from Georgia. 2 Georgia guys within 9 picks of each other by the Patriots. Huge gets for them, and they also picked a developmental quarterback, Danny Etling, the quarterback from LSU, late in the draft. So, again, sure, they lost a few pieces, but does anyone think that this team isn't winning the division? Does anyone think this team isn't winning the division by 3 or more games? I mean, I just picked Buffalo and Miami to go 8-8. New England went 13-3 last year, and what have they lost? What are they going to really miss? Are they really going to miss Amendola? Are they going to really miss Dion Lewis? They've had such success with running back by committee. I just don't see how this is going to be any different. So they have Brady, that. Hoyer's the backup. Bolden, Burkhead, Gillislee, Hill, Michael, James White. That's the running back stable they have. So I wouldn't pin my fantasy hopes on them, but they're obviously going to find someone that's ready to play week in, week out. Receiver, they got a bunch of cast-offs. Edelman's suspended for a little bit. Chris Hogan. Is Jordan Matthews the next Chris Hogan? Is he the guy that comes over from Buffalo and becomes a huge star in New England? I mean, Matthews had his moments with Philly, but whenever you go to New England, your career seems to get resurrected. We could see that from Kenny Britt or Philip Dorsett this year. And, right, that's right. They were the landing spot of Cordero Patterson, who hasn't blossomed as a receiver, but as a special teams guy and a sub-package guy, watch out. And they still have Gronkowski and Dwayne Allen. The offensive line, again, losing Solder hurts, but early draft pick, and they've had success with a variety of guys along that offensive line that when they have an Achilles heel that can be exploited, it's been the offensive line. If you can put pressure on Brady, you have a chance to beat them. But I don't know that it's going to happen enough this season to really be worried about the offensive line. And the defense, again, you can rotate people in, former high draft picks, big name free agents. It doesn't matter. They just seem to execute, and they're one of the best in the business. Will we see the departure of Matt Patricia affect the unit? Tough to say, but we've seen Patriots coaches come and go, and they haven't really missed that much time. It's been nearly 2 decades, and no one's been able to slow down this Patriot regime, and I just don't think anything's going to do it this year. So it's another long year for the AFC East as New England looks to dominate once again. What did Justin say? Was it 13-3? Yeah, 13-3 last year. Justin says 13-3 this year. I say 13-3 this year because why not? Well, who's going to beat them? They are probably at least 4 to 5 games better than Buffalo and Miami and the Jets. That I didn't even look at their schedule because does it really matter? Probably not. And they finished the season with back-to-back home games with the Bills and Jets. Now, 2 weeks before that, they do have to go to Miami, which people laugh, but they've always played New England well in Miami. So the Dolphins, that could be a tough game for them December 9th. Then they have to go to Pittsburgh December 16th. While New England has had the upper hand against the Steelers, going to Pittsburgh and playing a talented team in Pittsburgh is not an easy thing to do before they finish the season with Buffalo and New York at home. Tough games for New England. They got to go to Jacksonville week 2. That could be an interesting one. They host the Chiefs week 6. They host the Packers week 9. They host the Vikings. You're sensing a theme here. Other than the Jaguars game and the Steelers game, all their tough games have been at home. Chiefs, Packers, Vikings, all at Gillette. So, yeah, I mean, they'll win. That's the thing. There's some games where like, oh, that's a push because those teams are really good. Like the ones I just mentioned. Jacksonville, Kansas City, Green Bay, the Vikings, the Steelers. Those probably could be pushes, and New England may very well be favored in all those. But do you really think New England's going to lose more of them than they are going to win? No way. So New England's going 13-3, winning the division once again. All right, last team in the AFC East, the New York Jets. 5-11 last year, 4th place in the division. I see a lot more of the same this year. Maybe a little bit better. Justin said 6-10. That's probably where I'm going to go, 6-10 as well. Justin says he thinks they have the quarterback now, but it takes more than this year to get there, and I agree with him. Although Sam Darnold, I believe, is still holding out and not at Jets camp. I think that could have changed. But Darnold was one of 2 players, the Bears linebacker Roquan Smith being the other, that has not reported to camp last I knew. So who's it going to be a quarterback if Darnold's not ready? Well, it's going to come down to Teddy Bridgewater, the Vikings cast-off, who had a great year in 2015, but had the knee injury prior to the 16 season and missed the last 2 seasons. Could be him, but I'd say Josh McCown's probably the better bet. Running back, they brought in Isaiah Kroll. They have Elijah McGuire, Bilal Powell, and Thomas Rawls. So, again, it could be another committee approach there. Who has the hot hand on any given week? Receiver-wise, receivers. Not a great group. A bunch of 2s and 3s. You got Pryor there now. Terrell Pryor is there. He had a great year in Cleveland 2 years ago. Sputtered in Washington last year. Andre Roberts, again, a cast-off, had been in Arizona for a while. A bunch of good number 3s. Maybe a 2 in Jermaine Kearse. Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson have made names for themselves there, but that's because the Jets didn't have anything else. But yeah, a collection of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string guys there that have to step up and take care of all the work. Tight end, unless you're still a fan of Clive Walford, not interested in a lot there at tight end. Offensive line, hasn't quite come together. I was high on Ben Angelana coming out of Villanova. He hasn't been able to put it together. James Carpenter is a former first-round pick of the Seahawks. Same thing with him. Defensively, a lot of the big names have been jettisoned over the last few years, but they do still have Leonard Williams, who's one of the best in the league. And linebacker, Darren Lee, a pretty good ball player out of Ohio State over the last few years, but not too much else there that gets me really excited. Jamal Adams is a huge get in his second year here with the Jets. He should develop into something nice. And you have Morris Claiborne, Tremaine Johnson, some former star cornerbacks, but again, nothing to say that they're that much more improved than last year when they went 5-11. So the Jets again do have the potential for an easy schedule because of having to play Buffalo and the Dolphins right there. There's 4 games that you could say are pushes, and if those games go the way New York wants them to, they could be the team that's 9-7, 8-8 rather than 5-11, 6-10. They do have a tough opening with 3 out of 4 on the road with their only home game against the Dolphins in Week 2, although they get to go to Detroit and Cleveland in Week 1 and 3, and those should be kind of, you hate to say must win at this point, especially because it's July, but if you want to get off on the right foot, you got to be teams that have equal talent levels, and I think Detroit and Cleveland are probably right around, Detroit, Miami, and Cleveland are probably right around where the Jets are at. Then they got to go to Jacksonville before 3 straight home games against Denver, Indianapolis, and Minnesota. Road trip to Chicago and to Miami. Host the Bills on November 11th before their bye in Week 11. Then they've got the Patriots twice in 6 weeks on November 25th and December 30th. And in between those games are at Titans, at Bills, host the Texans, host the Packers. So, again, they were 5-11 last year. Justin and I think they're going 6-10. The Jets in 2018, 4th place once more. So the only real changes in the AFC East that we see are the Dolphins and Bills flip-flopping, but they're both right on each other's heels, with the Patriots way out in front of everyone else and the Jets slightly lagging behind. So, all right, we're going to run through playoffs and Super Bowl stuff right now. I'm just going to read Justin's as he sent them to me to make it easy on myself, and then I'll come back and do my take. So in the AFC, Justin says New England will be the number 1 seed, Pittsburgh the number 2 seed, Jacksonville the 3 seed, and Denver the 4 seed. So and his 2 wild cards are Tennessee and Kansas City. So the way that shapes up is the first round would be Kansas City at Jacksonville and Tennessee at Denver. He didn't break down the playoffs any farther than that, except to say that he believes it will be the 1 and 2 seeds in the AFC Championship game, and he has Patriots over Steelers. Patriots once again in the AFC Championship game, and once again in the Super Bowl. So Patriots over Steelers in the AFC from Justin. In the NFC, sorry, I got a text from my Uncle Rich here saying Bill and Tom for another 2 years. That's not what I want to hear. My dad has a couple of comments too. He says, anybody but them, I'm tired of seeing them, obviously talking about the Patriots. He says that Pittsburgh game could be for home field advantage in the playoffs. I agree with him there. And he says that is a huge, huge game. So yeah, big game, Pittsburgh against New England upcoming in this NFL season. Back to Justin's pick. In the NFC playoffs, he has Minnesota as the 1 seed, Philly as the 2 seed, Carolina at 3, and the Rams at 4, with his wild cards being Dallas and Atlanta. So that sets up a first round of Atlanta at Carolina and Dallas at the Rams. The NFC Championship game, he has the Eagles over the Rams, a 2-4 matchup. That game would be in Philadelphia, and he has Philadelphia beating the Rams and going back to the Super Bowl. A rematch. Wait. Okay, he messed something up here because he has Philly over Pittsburgh. Oh, he says changing my AFC pick to Pittsburgh. So forget about what I said in the AFC for Justin. He changes it to Pittsburgh over New England in the AFC Championship game. So New England would keep their streak of AFC Championship game appearances alive, but he is picking the Steelers, the 2 seed, to win the AFC, and he's picking Philly, the 2 seed of the NFC, to win the conference, and then in the Super Bowl, and finally in all Pennsylvania Super Bowl, which people have been interested in for the last 15 years or so, with both teams being so strong year in and year out. He has, of course, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl once again, back-to-back champs, Eagles over Steelers, and he says, double it up, baby, and right away, as if on cue, my dad chimes in and says, what a homer. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do. So, on my end, now I got to remember who I have and who I have winning what and going where. So, let's start in the NFC. I think in the NFC, I will go. Let's see. My division winners were AFC West was the Rams. Or excuse me, NFC West was the Rams. NFC South was Carolina. NFC North was Green Bay, and NFC East was Dallas. So one of those four teams are going to be at the top. So Dallas, Carolina, Rams, and Packers. Boy. I think I'll give the nod to the Rams here as the 1 seed. I'm not completely sold on that, but I think that they could make some noise this year. I'll give the LA Rams the 1. I'm going to give Green Bay the 2, Carolina the 3, and Dallas the 4. And my 2 wildcard teams are the Vikings and the Eagles in that order, which would set up a Philly at Carolina first round and Minnesota at Dallas first round. So I'm going to go with Minnesota and Carolina there. So that would be the Rams would play the Vikings and Carolina would play Green Bay. I'm going to say Green Bay and the Rams win. So my NFC Championship is Green Bay at the Rams. And, I'm just going to go with the Rams all the way through. Why not? I think that'd be an interesting playoff matchups all the way through. I'm going to go with the Rams to win the NFC. That's a bit of a surprise even to myself. So, if you disagree, trust me, I don't hold it against you at all. In the AFC, I have New England the 1 seed, Pittsburgh the 2 seed. I think actually I might mirror Justin here. New England 1, Pittsburgh 2, Jacksonville 3. My 4 seed though is going to be Kansas City because I have them winning the division. Then my wild cards in the AFC. Oh boy. AFC wildcards are tough for me. I don't think it's going to be anyone in the East because I don't think an 8-8 team is going to be good enough to make it. I don't think anyone in the North is going to make it. So it's got to be someone from the West or the South, which, wow, that doesn't jump out at me as being interesting either. This could be tough. I guess I'll go with... You know what? I don't remember what I picked their record-wise, and maybe I didn't even pick them second, but I think I'm going to throw the Texans in there as a 6, which means out west, I'm going to grab someone from there and say, Broncos are already in. No, Chiefs are already in, so I got Broncos, Raiders, Chargers. You know what? Throw the other LA team. The Chargers and the Texans winning those games, which means it would be the Texans at the Patriots and the Chargers at the Steelers. There I'm going to have to go chalk, though, and say Steelers, Patriots in the AFC Championship game, and I'm going to pick the Patriots in the Super Bowl against the Rams. So a little bit of an interesting matchup there. While they're not in St. Louis anymore, will be Rams-Patriots, a game we saw in 2001 or after the 2001 season or winter 2002 for that Super Bowl, and that was kind of the beginning of the Patriots dynasty. And maybe we can signal the end of that by the Rams beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. There you go. So in the end, I see Rams over Patriots. Wow, that was 2.5 months build up right there, and I hope it was entertaining for you to hear me say the Rams over the Patriots in Super Bowl 53 being held in Atlanta on February 3rd of 2019. Couple more things from my dad. He thinks the NFC is a lot harder to pick than the AFC is, and he agrees with me and Justin. It's either going to be Pittsburgh or New England in the AFC. So, that was fun. Thanks everyone for watching. So this is kind of me signing off on this show for a while because Justin and I are doing so much for the high school podcast, the one covering the Wilson Westlawn Bulldogs, that we won't be back on this show to talk pro football for a month and a half. Yeah, we're going to be back, and the NFL season will have already started. We won't be back here until week 2, which is September 16th. We're going to be focused on the Wilson Bulldogs. We're going to have, I think, 3 or 4 shows coming out before their first game, which is Friday, August 24th at Central Dauphin. And then we're going to have basically a show a week for the Wilson football team, just taking a break once a month to cover the NFL because we do love talking about pro football and we don't want to throw that to the side. If there was a way we could do both shows, we would love to be able to do that, but time constraints don't allow it. But we will be back talking pro football on September 16th. We'll talk about the first 2 weeks of the NFL season and, see who's hot and who's not. And hopefully we're talking about, for his sake, the Giants not being good, but Saquon Barkley being a beast. So we'll see what happens in the NFL when we're back here in 6 weeks. Get more from us. Visit jmnjrradio.com. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Joe Mays and J-Raff. Happy belated birthday to J-Raff, celebrating just this past week. Happy belated also to our good buddy's youngest daughter, Alexa, celebrating the same day as Justin. And also our friend Laura, celebrating a birthday this past week. And I do believe that one Mr. Corey Greth is celebrating a birthday next weekend. So happy early birthday to my man Corey. I'll see you tomorrow night, bud. But for everyone else watching the show, you can get more from us on the website. Check out joemaysandjraff.com, or again, like I said, jmnjrradio.com, or see what we're doing for the Wilson football team at bulldoghour.com. But for Justin, I'm Joe Mays. This wraps up episode 264 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff show. Hope you enjoyed it. Go Dolphins. Please someone beat the Patriots. But like you just heard, I don't think that's going to happen, at least until the Super Bowl. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you again in about 6 weeks.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff show. Tune in every Sunday for the latest sports discussions from Joe and Justin. Each episode is available live
On Facebook Live.
and can be downloaded or streamed on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can interact with Joe and Justin on Facebook and Twitter, and stay up to date with the guys at joemaysandjraff.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff show is part of the JMNJR Radio Network. For more info, visit jmnjrradio.com.